Welcome back to the Financial Nexus. In a sweeping new analysis that's sending shockwaves through investment circles, Morgan Stanley has issued what amounts to an economic warning disguised as a technology forecast. The investment bank's research team isn't just predicting another incremental advance in artificial intelligence capabilities. They're warning of a transformative leap that will fundamentally alter competitive dynamics across every major industry, and they believe most of the world remains catastrophically unprepared for what's coming. The timeline they've established is uncomfortably specific and remarkably near-term. Morgan Stanley expects this breakthrough to emerge during the first half of 2026, driven by what they describe as an unprecedented accumulation of computational power at America's leading AI laboratories. The mathematical foundations underlying their prediction rest on scaling laws that have proven remarkably durable, despite widespread skepticism about their continued validity. The investment bank's analysis centers on a concept that Elon Musk articulated during recent investor discussions. Applying 10 times the computational power to large language model training effectively doubles a model's measurable intelligence. This relationship, known as a scaling law, has held consistent across multiple generations of AI development, despite repeated predictions that it would break down as models reached certain size thresholds. What makes Morgan Stanley's warning particularly compelling is the evidence they've assembled about compute accumulation patterns at major AI laboratories. The research indicates that leading companies have been systematically building computational capacity that far exceeds what current model architectures can effectively utilize. This suggests they're preparing for breakthrough architectures that can leverage dramatically larger amounts of computational power than existing systems. The proof of concept for this scaling relationship already exists in publicly available systems. OpenAI's recently released GPT-5.4 thinking model achieved 83% accuracy on the GDP-Val benchmark, placing it at or above the level of human experts on economically valuable tasks. This represents a fundamental shift from AI systems that perform well on academic benchmarks to systems that can compete with human professionals in revenue-generating activities. The economic implications of this transition extend far beyond the technology sector into the core assumptions that drive financial modeling across every major industry. When artificial intelligence systems can perform economically valuable tasks at human expert levels, the traditional relationships between labor costs, productivity growth, and competitive advantage become fundamentally unstable. Morgan Stanley's conclusion about the nature of future economic competition is particularly stark. They describe the coin of the realm as becoming pure intelligence, forged by computational power and electrical energy. This represents a complete departure from economic models based on traditional factors of production, including land, labor, and physical capital. In the emerging economy, competitive advantage flows to entities that can most effectively convert computational resources into intelligent capability. The implications for existing business models are profound and immediate. Companies that have built competitive advantages through human expertise, traditional process optimization, or incumbent market positions face potential displacement by entities that can deploy superior intelligence at scale. The speed of this transition depends entirely on when breakthrough AI architectures become available that can effectively utilize the computational capacity that has already been accumulated. The financial markets have begun reflecting anticipation of these changes through capital allocation patterns that favor AI infrastructure over traditional technology investments. NVIDIA's market capitalization reflects not just current demand for AI chips, but expectations that computational power will become the primary determinant of economic value across industries. Similar patterns appear in the valuations of companies positioned to benefit from AI-driven automation versus those dependent on traditional human-intensive business models. However, the most significant aspect of Morgan Stanley's analysis concerns the preparedness gap they've identified across most industries and institutions. While leading AI laboratories and a small number of technology companies have been systematically building toward this transition, the majority of businesses, governments, and financial institutions appear to lack strategic frameworks for operating in an economy where intelligence can be manufactured at scale. This preparedness gap creates both tremendous risks and unprecedented opportunities for entities that can accurately anticipate the timing and scope of the coming transition. Companies that begin restructuring their operations around AI-native processes before the breakthrough occurs will gain sustainable competitive advantages over those that wait for the transition to become obvious to everyone. The historical precedent that Morgan Stanley's researchers cite involves the introduction of personal computers during the 1980s. Organizations that recognized the transformative potential of computing technology early and restructured their operations accordingly gained lasting advantages over competitors who treated computers as incremental productivity tools rather than fundamental business architecture changes. The difference between the personal computer transition and the coming AI breakthrough lies in the speed and scope of the transformation. Personal computers require decades to fully reshape business processes and competitive dynamics. The AI transition that Morgan Stanley anticipates will unfold over a much shorter time frame because the underlying technology can be deployed at software speeds rather than hardware replacement cycles. The concentration of AI development capabilities within a small number of American technology companies creates additional strategic considerations for businesses and investors. Unlike the personal computer industry, which involved multiple competing hardware and software providers, advanced AI development requires computational resources that only a handful of entities can afford to build and maintain. This concentration dynamic means that competitive advantages derived from AI capabilities may be distributed unevenly across different industries and geographic regions, depending on access to leading AI systems. Companies and countries that can establish preferential relationships with AI providers during the transition period may gain advantages that persist long after the technology becomes more widely available. The workforce implications of Morgan Stanley's projection extend beyond simple automation of existing job categories into fundamental questions about human economic roles in an intelligence-abundant economy. When AI systems can perform expert-level work across multiple domains simultaneously, traditional assumptions about human comparative advantage in cognitive tasks become questionable. However, the transition also creates new categories of economic value that don't exist in current markets. The design, training, and deployment of AI systems requires human expertise that becomes more valuable as AI capabilities expand. Similarly, activities that require human judgment about AI system outputs create new professional roles that didn't exist before AI reached expert-level capabilities. The regulatory and policy implications of this transition have barely begun receiving attention from government institutions. Current regulatory frameworks assume that technological change occurs gradually enough for institutions to adapt through incremental policy adjustments. The speed of change that Morgan Stanley anticipates may require completely new approaches to economic policy, taxation, and social systems. The international competitive dynamics created by this transition raise questions about technological sovereignty and economic security that extend far beyond current trade policy frameworks. Countries that lack access to leading AI capabilities may find themselves at systematic disadvantages in economic competition that compound over time as AI advantages accumulate. The investment implications for financial markets depend heavily on the timing and specific nature of the breakthrough that Morgan Stanley anticipates. If their timeline proves accurate, current market valuations may not fully reflect the magnitude of disruption that will affect traditional business models across multiple industries simultaneously. The energy infrastructure requirements for deploying AI at the scale Morgan Stanley envisions represent another dimension of unpreparedness that could constrain the pace of transition. Advanced AI systems require enormous amounts of electrical power, and the existing grid infrastructure in most regions wasn't designed to support simultaneous deployment of computationally intensive AI applications across multiple industries. The cybersecurity implications of widespread AI deployment add another layer of systemic risk that most organizations haven't adequately considered. When critical business processes depend on AI systems, the potential impact of AI-targeted cyber attacks becomes correspondingly larger. The concentration of AI capabilities within a small number of providers creates potential single points of failure that could affect multiple industries simultaneously. What makes Morgan Stanley's analysis particularly credible is their track record in identifying technology transitions before they become obvious to broader markets. The investment bank correctly anticipated the magnitude of internet adoption during the 1990s and the mobile computing transition during the 2000s. Their current AI analysis employs similar methodologies that focus on infrastructure build-out patterns rather than technology demonstrations alone. The specific breakthrough that Morgan Stanley anticipates may involve architectural innovations that dramatically improve the efficiency of converting computational power into intelligent behavior. Current large language models utilize only a fraction of their computational capacity effectively due to architectural limitations that researchers are actively working to overcome. The competitive dynamics that emerge from this transition will likely favor entities that can most effectively integrate AI capabilities with existing business processes and customer relationships. Pure technology companies may not capture all the value created by AI breakthroughs if established businesses can successfully incorporate AI capabilities into their existing operations. The timeline pressure created by Morgan Stanley's analysis forces strategic decisions that many organizations would prefer to delay until the technology landscape becomes clearer. However, the investment bank's research suggests that waiting for clarity may mean missing the window for establishing competitive advantages during the transition period. Understanding the implications of this projected breakthrough becomes crucial for investors, business leaders, and policymakers who need to make decisions today that will determine their competitive positions in an intelligence-abundant economy. The intersection of unprecedented computational capability with breakthrough AI architectures creates possibilities that extend far beyond current technology applications into fundamental questions about economic structure and competitive dynamics. Thanks for joining us for this analysis of Morgan Stanley's AI breakthrough projection and its implications for the global economy. The relationship between computational power and economic value is entering uncharted territory where traditional business models and competitive assumptions may no longer apply. We'll continue monitoring these developments as they unfold and examining their implications for investors and institutions navigating this technological inflection point. Make sure to subscribe for continued coverage of the forces reshaping economic reality at the intersection of technology and finance.